In Season 1 of Manifest, the passengers aboard Montego Air Flight 828 depart from Jamaica in 2013, but upon their arrival in New York City, they discover that the date was now November 4th, 2018, and that they had somehow jumped forward over 5 years in time. And it's not just the time jump that the passengers have to worry about. As they each begin hearing voices guiding them for a specific mission, the NSA and its director Robert Vance started to look into the truth behind the plane's disappearance and urges all of the passengers to not speak of their experience with anyone. And as for those passengers, the world presumed dead, leading to a lot of complications upon their return. Michaela Stone was an NYPD detective, engaged to fellow detective Jared before Flight 828. Upon her return, she discovers that Jared has married her best friend Lourdes. Michaela's brother Ben was aboard Flight 828 with his young son Cal, who had recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer. Ben's wife Grace and their daughter Olive, Cal's twin, had been forced to board a separate flight out of Jamaica. During the 5-year absence, Grace began dating a man named Danny, whom Olive started to look up to as her new father figure. Grace breaks up with Danny to reconcile with Ben upon his return, but the relationship is now strained. Eventually, Grace reveals to Ben that she was pregnant, but that Danny was likely the father. Meanwhile, Cal struggles with his twin sister and all of his friends, now being 5 years older than him. Then, we are introduced to a medical researcher named Savi. She was also on Flight 828 and is returning to her workplace after 5 years. The research she submitted right before her disappearance has been in practice for the past 2 years and has cured cancer. Her co-workers throw her a surprise party, welcoming her back. The next morning, Michaela runs and comes across 2 dogs barking at her from inside a gate. She hears the calling in her head for the second time. This time, the voice asks her to let them free. She thinks about it for a second before continuing to jog. Hours pass and it gets dark, but the voice doesn't go away. At midnight, Michaela goes to the dogs again and is joined by Ben a while later. It turns out he also heard the same calling as she did. They break open the door and let the dogs free, but decide to not tell anyone about the callings. The entire world's eyes are upon them, so if they say something strange, people might want to perform experiments on them. The following day, the police found security footage of the incident. Jared keeps it on a low to keep Michaela out of trouble. He asks her why she let the dogs free, but even she doesn't have an answer to that. They find the dogs and go to the owner to apologize. In the meantime, Ben tries to mend his relationship with Olive, going to her football games and catching up with her life. They decide to take it slow because, after Cal and Ben's disappearance, Olive had to go to therapy for many years. As soon as Michaela gets closer to the dogs, she again hears the voice asking her to set them free. Jared talks to the dog's owner, explaining the situation to him, but Michaela cannot focus because of the voice. She suddenly breaks open the door to a room out of pure instinct. Inside are the 2 girls who were kidnapped a few days ago. The voice had been asking her to set the girls free, not the dogs. Jared is shocked, but he doesn't have time to comprehend what happened because he has to arrest the kidnapper. The police force believes Michaela is ready to continue her job since she was able to solve the case right after returning. They allowed her to come to work, but put her on desk duty for a few days. Somewhere else, Ben and the family are playing a board game together. Grace gets a text from her boyfriend saying that he misses her. She was in a relationship with a man before Ben's return, but doesn't have the guts to tell him yet. At the same time, some passengers on the flight get a slight headache, and something in their hearts tell them to go to the airport instantly. When they arrive, they are shocked to see each other, knowing that all of them have the same urge. Suddenly, the airplane explodes into pieces without anything triggering it. When the NSA finds out that 20 passengers were present at the scene, they are brought in for interrogation. They all give the same answer, that they just felt like coming to the airport. They are let go after 10 hours of interrogation, but the officials keep a close eye on them to make sure they aren't hiding something. At breakfast the next morning, Jared hears a specific tune playing in his head. No one else hears it, which makes him question his sanity. Following the eventful morning, he and Grace bring Cal for chemo, where they meet Sanvi. Upon finding out she was also in 828, they are shocked because Cal is being treated using her discovery. Meanwhile, Michaela goes to work and finds Lourdes. They used to be best friends, but this time, Michaela cannot get herself to talk to her. Later, she is told that she will have to take a psych eval before she gets back to work. Ben is crossing a signal when he hears the same tune again and decides to follow it this time. He reaches a street singer, Rad, who was also in the fight with them. It turns out that Rad left his 13-year-old son with his neighbor when he first boarded the plane. Now he has found out that his son Adio is in jail, but no one is letting the poor man meet him. Jared has been called to him, which means he has to help Rad. Using his connections in the NYPD, he arranges a meeting between Rad and his son. Adio has been arrested for stealing from a jewelry store he works in, but he insists that it wasn't him. The guy might be lying, but something tells Ben that he is not. At home, Ben tells Michaela to keep the callings a secret from Grace as well. He doesn't want her to feel like he is any different from the Ben he was 5 years ago. The next morning, Grace gets a call from her boyfriend who is urging her to tell Ben the truth. As she is explaining the situation to him, Michaela hears her. She promises to not tell Ben, but asks Grace to quickly figure out what she wants to do. Later, Michaela digs into Adio's case and finds that all evidence points towards him being the culprit since there is no sign of forced entry, and he used a false ID to get the job. Red goes to talk to him one more time, but Adio insists that it wasn't him. He used the fake ID to get better jobs, but he would never steal something from the job he worked so hard to get. At night, Grace buys Cal new toys because his old ones were donated. However, he misses things like his rock collections and limited edition Legos. It turns out that without Grace's knowledge, Olive has stored them in a storage unit. She and Ben go to retrieve the stuff, and Ben finds out the unit belongs to Grace's boyfriend Danny. Before they can move the boxes, Ben again hears the tune, but this time in real life. He follows it and finds out it is the ringtone of the jewelry shop owner's son. He is the one who stole the jewelry and put the blame on Adio. Ben immediately calls the police and gets him arrested. In the end, Adio is let free, and Red couldn't be happier. Michaela goes through her Facebook page and finds several messages from Lourdes over the years. It makes her remember the friendship they shared. She goes to Lourdes' place and reunites with her, forgiving her for everything. Somewhere else, Ben confronts Grace about her love affair. He doesn't blame Grace for being with someone else to get over the pain of losing her husband and child. Grace is grateful to have such an understanding man as her husband. After that, we are introduced to Kelly, one of the 828 passengers, who has been the most vocal about what happened to them. She goes on interviews and blames the government for hiding something. Then, when she is watching the news at night, someone shoots her dead. In a few hours, her house is surrounded by police. Ben also finds out about it through the news and asks his family to be careful of strangers because the death might be related to her being a passenger. He gets a call from Sanvi, who says that she has found an undiscovered protein in Cal's blood that wasn't there before the return. They decide to keep it a secret before she does more research to find out what exactly it is. Following the call, Michaela and Ben go to Kelly's house to investigate the murder. However, they are interrupted by Vance, who kicks them out because the matter related to Flight 828 is a matter of national security. Outside, they meet Kelly's husband Taylor, who says that his wife had a calling yesterday. Before they ask him more about it, he walks away. Michaela has also been hearing the phrase "own your truth" repeatedly in her head. She hears Kelly say the same thing in her interview and realizes that she is meant to find Kelly's killer. Later, she and Ben go to talk to Taylor, who is preparing for the funeral. He thinks that Kelly was killed because of the interviews, and so does his maid. When they start to receive guests, the siblings see themselves out. However, this reminds Michaela of her friend Evie's death. A few months before the disappearance of the flight, Michaela was in a car accident with Evie. Evie died in the crash, and since Michaela was driving, she never forgave herself. To own her truth, she goes to Evie's parents' home and finds her mother. The last time Michaela was here, she was kicked out because the couple didn't want to see her, but this time, Beverly invites her in. Michaela soon finds out that she has dementia and still thinks her daughter is alive. Her husband, however, still blames Michaela for Evie's death. After the encounter, Michaela goes to work and meets Jared. He did some digging on Kelly and found out that she and her husband own a downtown mall. Michaela remembers that the maid mentioned a mall while talking about Kelly yesterday. That place might hold the answers they are looking for.